Páirt, welcome back everybody. I'm just going to talk a little bit about RAST tests, which are food allergy tests, well, allergy tests really, and blood allergy tests, and I suppose the significance of them for me. And I believe they're now the gold standard for testing. So if you are someone who's experienced intolerances or have gone to, well, say, nurses or gotten these kind of skin pricks where you get the different types of food on your forearm and they see what kind of reaction you have, and some of them end up in a rash and other ones are okay and some are really bad. The RAST test is probably your best test. I believe it's the gold standard nowadays. So just to give you a summary of what happens with it, you get blood samples taken, they put your blood in the petri dish and they put certain kinds of foods. So for example, these are the foods that I'd be tested for here. I'll go through this in a minute. But they'll put those kinds of food into the blood and see see how your blood reacts. Okay, so this is just a quick look at my own. So I got this done in the University Hospital Galway, and it was on, when was it? It was in 2011, so the 11th to the 10th, 2011. Okay, so I'll start over here. So over here, what we have our normal ranges. Okay, so anywhere between 0 and 0.35 is normal. So that's what you would expect for all of these. So what we see then is house dust mite was 89.1. Timothy grass, which would be just kind of your hay fevery kind of stuff, 33.5. Peanuts was 1.98. Okay, so I'm just going to focus on those three for a minute. So, for example, for me, sleep was always my real big problem. And the reason for that, I'm gathering, is because of, again, this house dust mite. So the house dust mite reaction, 89.1, that is huge. I have symptoms with peanuts, hazelnuts and Brazil nuts, and look, they're only down at 1, less than 2, and house dust mite is nearly 90. So for me, that was significant. Learning about these intolerances were significant, and cutting them out. I'll just give you a quick example of another one then that I had done. So I got that one done. The thing with this test is when you go in, they'll do a test the first day, but they won't really test for anything. They'll just test your IgE levels first, and then if they're high, they'll do another test, and they'll test for foods or specific things, but you have to give them a list. If you don't put it on a list, they're not going to test for it. So this is something, communicate with your doctor about this, obviously, because your doctor will be overlooking this. But for example, I've gone in there before and I've said to the doctor, listen, we have to write down a list of things that we want to get tested, because I spoke with the dietitian inside in the hospital who runs the testing, and she said write down a list of the things that you want to get tested before you send in your blood sample, or else they won't test them at all. Okay, so that was one. On that first one I showed you done in 2011, there was no dairy on that one. Okay, so there was no dairy in that one because the dairy was done in 2010. So I had a test done a year before that in 2010. So, for example, where's dairy? Wheat, soy, gluten, milk down here at the bottom. Okay, so milk was gone. We're losing it a small bit. So 50.8. So, for example, with that, when I have a glass of milk, or whey protein is something that's made from milk, if I had a shaker of whey protein, I'd be able to down it. I'd close my eyes and I'd just force it into me, and it'd be in my stomach. Be very uncomfortable going down. About 20 minutes later, I'd start breaking out in this sweat, and I'd feel really fevery, and I'd feel very, very ill, and very kind of cramps in my stomach and everything. And about 40 minutes later, then I'd be inside in the jacks, and it would just all be coming back up. So that's what happens with milk. So obviously that one's very high. But with, for example, nuts, there's nuts on this one as well. So with nuts, So hazelnut, Brazil nut, peanuts. I can have a handful of peanuts and be okay. Now, if I ate like a bag of peanuts, well, my sinuses would be going crazy, my throat would kind of be getting tight, and those would be kind of the symptoms, not as severe as getting sick or anything like that. So again, this information has been really helpful for me, and if you're someone who's gotten those, those tests done in your arm, or if you're worried about these intolerances, or if you're someone who's got asthma and finds it really hard to sleep, knowing that, if you have a really bad reaction to dust mites, you might need to look at getting dust mite covered if they're disturbing their sleep. So yeah, it's a long enough video. So yeah, that's it. We'll catch you in the next video.